Hi, this is Bill for SparkyChannel.com. Today I'm going to show you how to solder two wires together. So here I have two 16 gauge stranded wires, and I'm stripping it right there. Strip off about a little less than a ½ inch on both of them. Now I'm going to join these two wires together. I'm going to put them together like that. Just put them right together. Okay, now twist them. You twist one end one way and the other end the other way. Just twist them, and you're working on a car or something like that. You'll probably have the wire stabilized somehow, but if you don't, you need to stabilize the wires a little bit. I'm just going to put a couple bricks on there. You need to be able to get underneath the wires with your solder gun. Okay, here I got the rosin core solder, and I have my Weller soldering iron, and you put the soldering gun underneath the wire, and you put your rosin core solder above it, and it works real well. So put a little on the bottom too. So there you go. You have the wires twisted together and soldered together. Now remember, before you start this job, you got to figure out what you're going to do, what kind of connectors you're going to use. I have chosen what's called a solder seal connector. You see, it has some solder right in the middle of it there. When you hit it with your heat gun, that solder actually solders the wires together. But I'd like to go ahead and solder the wires and then also use the solder seal connector. I think that's a good idea. Okay, so now here's the heat gun. This is my DeWalt cordless heat gun. It's really handy. You got so many cords on a job site. Who needs another cord for your heat gun? So this is the DeWalt cordless heat gun, and I start in the middle, and then work my way out to one side, and you can see the solder seal connection is melting and going into place, and it'll make a waterproof connection. So just go around, make sure everything's nice and waterproof. Get this end a little bit too, and there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to use the heat shrink tubing. I'm going to go over this whole thing with the heat shrink tubing. Remember, you got to think about this before you start, because afterwards you can't put on the solder seal connector or the heat shrink tubing or whatever you're going to use. You have to figure this out before you start. So the DeWalt cordless gun is really good because it has a feature where it stays on. You have a little button you push and it stays on. So I'm starting in the middle. Once again, you can see it shrinking to the joint there, and the first connector would have been enough, really, but I like to, especially like for automotive use and so forth, let's protect that joint. Let's make it really good. See, okay, so it's shrinking down. The heat shrink tubing is shrinking down real nice on this end and in the middle and on the other end. It's real nice. You gotta keep it moving, and if you can, turn the wire so you get both sides. You don't want too much heat at any one point at any one time. So there you go. That's how you solder wires together. Another way to connect wires together would be to use a heat shrink butt connector like you see at the top of your screen. To use the butt connector, we're going to be crimping the wire instead of soldering it. So here's a pair of pliers that have 3 crimpers in the middle of it, and we're going to use the one that says 16 to 10 insulated and non. First, strip about 1/4 inch of insulation off of each end of the wire that you want to connect together. Then you put one end into the butt connector, then put the butt connector into the crimper and give it a nice crimp right where the stripped wire is. Okay, now you got to test it out. Give it a tug and test it out, make sure it's a good connection. Now twist your wire together and put this wire in the other half of the butt connector. Now you're going to take your crimper, get it on the right setting, and now crimp the second side of the butt connector. Okay, now give this a tug. All right, so that's good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the heat gun, and I'm going to keep it on the setting that keeps it on. And now you heat down the ends of the butt connector. There are heat shrinking ends on this butt connector. Keep the heat gun and or the wire moving so that you don't have too much heat on one area all at one time. Shrink down both ends. Once you've done that satisfactorily, get the heat shrink tubing and put it over the whole joint. And I like to start in the middle, heat it in the middle, and work my way out to the edges. Make sure that you heat shrink down the edges very well so that it makes a nice, strong, waterproof connection. So there's a couple of effective and long-lasting methods for connecting wires together. I'll put a link in my video description for the new DeWalt cordless heat gun, which gets up to 990 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll be making a video about this new tool in the near future. I'll also put links for all of the other tools I used in the video, such as the Weller soldering iron, rosin core solder, the Hacko soldering iron tip cleaner, a set of 120 of the solder seal connectors, a set of heat shrink tubings, a set of heat shrink butt connectors, Klein 1009s, and the Klein heavy duty wire strippers. Thanks. I hope this video was helpful.